Well, I just missed it, but we just rolled over 400,000 miles on this '03 truck, and today's video is going to be all about it. So here we have my 2003 Dodge Ram 2500. Got it under the house in case it rains. Today we're going to take a look under the hood and see what kind of condition things are in. Also going to do an oil change, and I'm also going to do some commentary on how I've maintained the truck to get this far. And here we are looking under the hood. I think you're going to see that for a high mileage diesel, this truck doesn't really have much in the way of leaks. Everything's relatively dry up here. There's maybe a little bit of a rocker box leak down in here and even on the other side as well. It's always been like that. You can see a little dampness near cylinder 5 and 6. That's probably a little bit of the rocker box gasket there, but extremely minor. Everything else just looking decent under the hood, considering mileage and that this is a diesel engine. Now we're underneath of the truck. Let's take a look. Never had a rear main seal, and no indication that we have a rear main seal coming up at all. Transmission, usually okay. It can sweat a little bit of oil around the gasket, but no big deal there. We do have the blow-by breather here, which can put some oil down. Not a lot though, but enough to, get oil all over this stuff here. Front diff, we've replaced the pinion seal here once, and it actually looks like it's sweating a little bit right now, but nothing to worry about. You got these little coolant lines. That's a OEM line right there. When they get old, they can leak a bit, and we did have one of them leak. Let's see if we can see it from here. It's really really hard to see, but you can see right there where that one little elbow is. That coolant pipe cracked on me one time, and that was probably the worst thing that has actually ever happened to me on this truck. And it started just dumping coolant down here onto the exhaust downpipe. That was really the worst thing that ever happened to me with this truck. Oil pan gasket, still no leaks. Let's pause for a minute. Now we're looking at the front of the engine here. Once again, everything's very dry. None of the seals on the front of the engine appear to be leaking. No coolant dripping from this area, which means water pump is likely all right. But that's a common leak right there. I've had to fix that 3 or 4 water pumps. That's one of the bigger things I've had to do on this. But everything looking really nice onto the truck. For a quick rundown on the truck and what's been done to it, maintenance-wise, repair-wise through the years. It's had 2 sets of ball joints, 2 sets of front hubs, and it's had 1 steering linkage. So that's the rundown on the front end. The engine is still stock. It's never been opened. The transmission has not been rebuilt. It has a Chrysler 47RE. This is the standard output truck, which has the 250 horse output. So it's kind of like detuned, and the transmission has just seemed to last under those conditions. No rebuilds on the trans, just oil changes. I've never had any problem with this mechanical throttle. A lot of people do. I have replaced all the battery cables and things like that. So transmission still original, as is the engine. Most of the powertrain is still intact. I have some old dealer records that indicate that there was some work done on the rear axle well before I had the truck, but I haven't done anything like that myself. We had 1 cracked radiator. It was probably around maybe 360,000 miles. Radiator cracked right up here on this side, and I put a new radiator in. Besides that, that's most of the major things that happen. And then I mentioned to you about the coolant leak on this line right here, which actually runs into the heater core. They get rusty after many years, and they just eventually rust through, and that's what happened. As far as rust goes, the frame is really in good shape all the way around. I did notice one rust spot here on, looks like the rocker panel. If we come up and pop the door open, we don't see any rust on this side. And then we have our typical northern salt rust situation because this truck was up north for a long time and has been through the snow and whatnot. This is very typical in the northern trucks. There goes our oil. Still looks pretty decent, actually. And if you're wondering how many miles I go between oil changes, this interval in particular was 10,000 miles. In the past, it's ranged from as short as 6,000 to as high as 12,000. And depending on what oil I'm using and how I'm driving the truck dictated how much miles to go on oil changes. And whether or not I sent an oil analysis in also impacted it. I will now comment a little bit more about oils I've used. So this is the oil that I currently run and have been running for the last 70,000 miles or so. It's Schaefer's 15W40. It's a synthetic blend, but I would consider it to be a very premium product. It competes with the likes of AMSOIL and the other super premium oils. I've sent oil analysis in with this, and we're looking at least a 15,000 mile interval is what this is good for. I've elected not to go that long and change it around the 12,000 mile mark, and since then I've really actually come back to just your typical 10,000 mile oil changes. This used to be a lot more affordable than it is now, so I'm likely to go back to something like this in the future and shorten my oil intervals. This is the Shell T5, and this is actually the oil that deserves the most credit of all for getting this engine this far, because this is what I ran for most of its life. I ran this for 11 or 12 oil changes in a row, and I've also used the other Shell products, the T4 and the T6, for another combined maybe 4 or 5 oil changes. So we've got about 20 oil changes worth of Shell oil being used in this truck, and you see a lot of trucks go a long way on Shell, and for about 17 bucks a gallon at Walmart, this is a pretty good value. I used to be able to get this for $29 a gallon. The current price on it, though, is a bit higher. It's about 33 bucks, maybe 34 bucks a gallon. A little on the pricey side, I'd say. Unless you're doing the severe duty driving or you want to go 15,000 miles on an oil change. I've talked to some people that have commercial fleets, and they say they've gotten 20,000 miles out of this, sent it in for analysis, and got told that they could go longer. So this stuff holds up real well over time. This is a 10,000 mile oil right here itself. So whichever way you go, you can't go wrong. Lots of great oil products in the market today. Now, as far as the filters go, I've been using these pretty much forever. I used Fleet Guard a couple times, Baldwin a couple times, but this I've used for like, who knows, like 30 oil changes now. Donaldson DBL 7349. It's got a better micron rating than stock. Love it. My oil analysis people tell me that it's doing a fantastic job with solubles and really anything that it could possibly take care of. It's doing a great job, and it did a good job on this truck here, the 6.7, despite all the soot in the oil and stuff with the emissions. Oil filter handled that well also. So I've been super happy with this. I just bought a whole case of 12 of these. If you buy them by the case, they're about 11, 12 bucks a piece. If you buy them as singles, they're closer to 15 bucks a pop. So that's the deal with the oil and the filters. Generally speaking, to get your truck to last a long time, you're going to want to consult your owner's manual and take its advice on when you should maintain things. With that said, you can also kind of use your own head and realize maybe certain things are not entirely necessary. Like, for example, I don't think it's necessary to change the differential oil every 30,000 miles. My truck has had its diff oil changed every 100,000 or so. And my oil comes out looking decent, and I haven't had any problems with my axles. But this truck isn't necessarily doing that much difficult tasks. It's cruising on the highway most of the time. This is my daily driver. I don't tow with it very much at all. I have a different truck right here to do the heavy towing. You know, this truck's done a little bit of towing in its years, but it's mostly unloaded highway driving or highway driving with a few 100 pounds in the bed. Transmission. I've been doing oil changes a couple times a year in recent years just to get the oil looking better. Every 30,000 miles has worked out well for me as far as transmission intervals for automatic transmission. You definitely want to take care of your trans because it's a Chrysler trans, and you know, they're not known to really be the most durable. But I've had pretty good luck with mine just doing the oil and the filter every 30,000 miles or so. Also, fuel filters and fuel additives. I've changed fuel filters around the 10,000 to 12,000 mile mark typically, sometimes as high as 15 or 16,000, sometimes as low as just a few thousand miles. And I've used these Baldwins, which fit in the stock canister. I've never had to replace injectors. So the OEM canister with the upgraded filter, injectors seem to have a long lifespan. I've had this truck for almost 250,000 miles, and I haven't done the injectors. Who knows how old those injectors are? So they are lasting with this setup. And occasionally I'll run an injector cleaner through the truck for a tank, but I don't run fuel additives every single tank. Just once in a while, especially in the wintertime if I need a little anti-gel, if I feel like it could be cold out, I'll sometimes run additives then. But for the most part, once every 3 months or so, run something like this. That's what I've been doing. Quick look at the interior. It's in pretty rough shape like you'd expect on a 400,000 mile truck. A lot of the electrical things in here don't work either, like the power seats have some issues. The dash, you can see, is messed up. The AC doesn't work. The heat is a little funny. You really got to mess with these switches to get the heat going. We got no airflow at all through the floor vents. I don't know why. So there's a bunch of issues with the interior, but overall, the things that are important still work in here. The original radiator or radio works. The heated seats work. Four-wheel drive works. No problems. Never had a four-wheel drive issue. And then, you know, everything's fine over there as well. The windows still roll up and down, although sometimes the rear passenger's window, it just doesn't react to the driver's switch over here. It's on and off, so I don't even lower that window anymore. So you can see it's had some issues in that, and that handle there I ripped off the pillar. So yeah, 400,000 miles, things happen, and that's where we're at on the interior. Well, we're at my favorite part of the video, putting new oil in. So I've relocated my old oil into these jugs to see how much oil came out of the truck, see how much we burned. The truck does burn a little bit of oil, so we got a full 2 gallons here, roughly. This one's a little bit overfilled maybe, this one's just a hair under. And then we've actually got not quite 3 quarts here. We've got about 2.5 quarts. So it looks like it burned 1.5 quarts, although there is a little bit left in the pan there, a little bit left in the oil filter. It burnt less than 2 quarts, which actually surprises me because I thought we'd be right around the 2 quart mark on this one. Looks like we got about 1/2 quart more than I thought, which is good news, of course. This level of oil burn is pretty typical on this mileage of truck, and I'm not too worried about it at all. Now I'm going to do a startup for you, show you how it starts, and take the truck out for a little drive, get it warm, and then I'll show you a blow-by test. So we take a look at that, and then we'll do a little walk around of the truck while it's out in the driveway so y'all can get a better look at the truck. So here we go. Sometimes it does take a little bit of a crank, and that's probably because the injectors are getting up there in age. But usually it starts on 7 turns. That time it took 8. Here's a little acceleration for you. A normal acceleration. It's by no means fast. This is a standard output truck. It does 0 to 60 in about 13 seconds. And this is how I'd normally drive it. It still drives just like the day I bought it though. Almost no difference. It steers the same, it accelerates the same, the engine runs as smoothly as before. The trans shifts just like before. I don't have any problems with slippage in the trans. Unless I was to floor it, then it may slip a bit. But under normal acceleration, anything less than 2,500 RPMs and it acts like as good as new. All right, here we are for the blow-by test. Engine is warm. Slight haze there. No major pressure. Cap is stayed still. Same as it's always been, really. Here's a little walk around for you. Damage that. Truck got hit and run about 3 times already. It's a bit dirty, but it's going to rain for the next few days, so I would wash it today. There you go. So to conclude this video, at 400,000 miles, this truck's still in decent shape to be out on the road driving around, and I'll continue driving it as long as it's reliable. I just got done driving this truck almost cross country, went about almost 3,000 miles and had no issues with it. So I wouldn't hesitate to take it on a long trip either. So you take care of your truck and it takes care of you. Maybe we'll see 500,000 miles. Anyways, hope y'all enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time. This is usually where we crack a beverage to celebrate, but you're not supposed to do that on YouTube anymore. So we'll crack a beverage off the video. Y'all have a good one. I'll see you next time.